the man, the forgotten dude, the egg guy. We have all heard the name, right? If not, go find out on your own. There's enough Deltarune videos out there explaining how to find the sucker. No, I'm not that interested in summarizing this funky little questline, and instead, I just wanna try to figure out what will happen next. But Kaifi, the man said that chapter 5 egg was the last. This was the last fun silly chapter, so it's gotta be over now, right? You think I care what some bum hiding behind some bushes think? No, this ain't over just yet. I say before Tobiathan proves me wrong as usual next year. Even if I pretend like some things are fact in this video, just remember, I love to spout hyperbole, so like, keep in mind that this is mostly just speculation. So, without further ado, who is this guy? Wait, a little more ado. Spoilers ahead for all 5 chapters of the rune, obviously. But with that out of the way, who is this guy? The identity of the Eggman is one of the most confusing questions that Deltarune asks. My revolutionary take on it? It doesn't really matter. Like, I don't think there's ever gonna be a grand reveal of who is really behind the tree. Maybe you could find an answer in the subtext, but it's mostly just themes and such. The storyline is much more about Chris's trauma than the guy they're talking to. You don't really know that much about your therapist, do ya? So, I'm kinda staunchly against takes like that the Forgotten Man is Papyrus or Grillby because of this. Also, the characterization wouldn't line up with Paps, and if it was Grillby, we'd have some indication that the egg was boiled or fried, right? The one single thing that makes me unsure about my answer here is that the man is always found in the room in between. That's Gaster's whole thing. From the waterfall door to the Skelebro's house, he loves being between things. So does the Forgotten Man. The first 2 egg rooms are between other places, Country features the flying aces who are all lost into the couch between the cushions, and so on. But it would make no goddamn sense whatsoever if the man was just Gaster. WD really doesn't like the eggs, as seen in the PlayStation trophies. You get a trophy saying chapter completed without issue when completing each chapter, even if you do the weird route, unless you get the egg. I'm not getting into why the credits voice is Gaster, since if you still doubt that, I think you might genuinely be stupid. But at the same time, it can't not be Gaster, since why the hell would there be 2 vague post merchants chilling in hidden rooms? The only option I could think of is that since Weird got shattered across space and time, both of these guys are different pieces of the same guy. That's where they're hidden, they're not really complete beings. I guess their follower in Undertale claims to hold a piece of the dudes, so it's not too absurd, I guess. But I don't like this conclusion whatsoever though. Having good Wing Gaster and evil Wingium Dingium is cheesy as hell and just seems stupid and like bad writing, but I don't know what other conclusion to draw. Let's just say the man is someone not too important nor unimportant. The egg rooms lack the Gaster motif, which is found everywhere else anyway, and there's nothing linking the man to the former royal scientist in these rooms. No phone, no mention of how green he is, there's not even a blunderbuss in there. I mean, technically in chapter 5, if you want to do the empty palm thing, I don't really buy that, but I could see that, I guess. Anyway, let's just move on. I mean, they're probably chicken eggs considering the reverse stealing scene in chapter 2. No, but what do they mean? Why eggs? I have no fucking idea, dude. Ask the dog, not me. They're really weird. Currently the only item other than the black shard to not change form in the light world. They disappear when you finish the chapter, and you could place the first 2 in hometown, but nothing ever happened with that. I was so sure that chapter 5 egg would be locked behind if you put the first one in Asgore's fridge or not, but nah. The easiest and most likely explanation for these things is that they're just an Easter egg hunt. Much like how the weird route is a diegetic integration of glitches and sequence breaks, the egg quest is making the age-old tradition of hiding Easter eggs in games a part of the story in a way. I was fine with leaving that out before chapter 5, but then no, Yellow's justice-loving ass had to include them as possible evidence in the trial, and had to include the flavor text. It's evidence. You'll know what it was evidence for when it happens. Oh my god, just stop being so goddamn vague! Let's just say it's for trans rels or whatever. There's generally no point in trying to predict this, since there's no evidence for this evidence. Instead, I look at them from a different perspective. Chapter 4 really proved that this questline is about Chris's trauma. So what if the reason Gaster takes issue with eggs is because they're making Chris less of a tool and more of a person? Like, he wanted us to have our vessel in chapter 1 before the other force intervened, and he had to settle with this flesh suit instead. I know the soul was in Chris before chapter 1. So us trying to make them more human goes against his wishes. At the same time, it's just an Easter egg hunt. This won't change the ending or break the prophecy. That's not the point of this. We are doing this for Chris's sake, not anyone else's. So I'd like to propose an idea I haven't heard before. What if the eggs are all related to the foreshadowing regarding Chris losing a hand? What if this isn't foreshadowing at all, but instead something that already happened? I recommend looking into hand theory on your own later, because it's really interesting. But the gist of it is, something's funny with Chris's hand. Using the shadow crystals show things that Chris would hate to happen, like Susie hating them, Undyne being hurt, or Noelle replacing them. But it's the first one that's interesting here. It makes your hand see-through. All of the other ones are based in Chris's current situation, so logically the chapter 1 crystal would be based in a nightmare from before the start of the game. We can link this to their trauma through the chapter 3 gotcha machine. You already know about how if you input 1225 you enter Human Nikki, where you can find an object whose description both fits the black shard and a guitar pick, which directly ties this to death and all of that. You also know that this results in Chris being unable to find their hand, and the room and the machine disappearing. What you might not know is that after an update to the game, the machine can leave the ticket to Man Country on the floor if you beat the sword route before doing the egg quest and make all of the screenshot of. And this links the hand stuff all the way back to the eggs. So what if Chris accidentally pushed Des into the Dark Fountain all of those years ago and had their arms halfway through the thing? This would effectively look like their hand was gone. Something that would later be dealt with in therapy by, I don't know, handing stuff to them? Perhaps eggs. The therapy was probably not all of that successful, considering how fucked up Chris still is, and how they repressed even the therapy itself, but like, it was a good attempt at least. This is all conjecture, and I'm connecting dots that were most likely never intended to be connected, but this does kinda fit in a cool way. At least in the way that I'm presenting it, which is for sure biased, and I'm definitely forgetting contradicting evidence. In the Undertale 10th anniversary livestream, Tobiel went on a beautiful speech about the nature of fan works and how he doesn't really care about his own thoughts about his works, and instead much rather prefer the fan takes.
About the new areas, it's basically just a what if. But this what if was always there. It never wasn't there and it will never not be there. Every monster has to have a place to go home to. Every monster has to have friends, they have to something to eat, somewhere to go hang out. The underground is a wide place. The only limit to all of this is your imagination. My goal with these days wasn't to show you a new hidden truth you will never be able to access. My goal is to remind you that you have always been able to go, if you just hold the key of asking what's there. What's under the bridge? What's beyond the horizon? Maybe you guys feel only my answer to these questions counts or matters. But to me I only feel the opposite. This is just one interpretation. The underground is as big as you want it to be. And I invite you to come behind the wall with me.
Now notice the specific example that he reiterated multiple times throughout the event. Every monster needs to have a home. Leaving this open works wonderfully in Undertale, where the underground is as big as you want it to be. Deltarune is different, however. Hometown is small as shit, and most of these guys straight up do not fit. Sure, some can live in the apartments, but other than that, the homes we see are occupied. I doubt anyone lives beyond the police tape. Except there are a few exceptions. When you walk down the main residential street, you may have noticed these roofs on the opposite side of the road that when you go down to the commercial district, just disappear. If this was the only place they appeared, I would just chalk it up to a classic Toburai inconsistency. But no, there's an extra street on the map of Hometown that appears in the town hall. That's strange. Oh, and in the Ferris wheel scene, where we could have gotten a bird's eye view of Hometown, the screen fades to black no matter who goes in the thing. On its own, pretty normal. With the chapter 2 wheel scene in mind, it becomes very interesting. Like, Chris doesn't like showing us their private time with Susie, like in the chapter 4 diner, and in this scenario they have no reason to show us the Suselle scene. In chapter 2 it was to hide the Ralsei conversation, plus they're jealous as fuck here. But we still don't see the Chriselle version. Very weird. But what would a secret street entail? Why hide it? Well, it's probably where John Egg lives. Like, the other alternative for why Chris would block out a place is if it was where the force would grow, but that shit ain't in the middle of town. That's either near the bunker or some other place in the woods. No, this gotta be related to the therapy. The Eggman seemingly does exist in the light world, as you get unique dialogue in both chapters 2 and 4 if you collected the eggs in the prior dark world. He seems like a friendly guy, waving to Chris whenever they see each other. The same level of closeness you'd have with a former patient, right? The street itself wouldn't be anything special. Everyone else knows it exists and treats it the same as any other place in town. Like, maybe Jockington lives there. I mean, it would make sense if he was neighbors with the Kattenheimers. Maybe this is where Moffat calls home. Pink did buy her tea, so her living across the street from the Blooks fits nicely. Where were Snowy and Monster Teen during the festival? Here probably. All this is purely speculation, but like it makes sense, right? Okay, so how do I propose this will go down, and what should you be on the lookout for in chapter 6? The chapter 5 egg room implied that this was the last time Chris and the man would be meeting like this, but Chris didn't seem too happy with that. Now, this is basically an admission from them that they'd like to see the man again. A weakness we're about to exploit. This gap in their armor is what we're going to be using to pry this secret street open. This is probably going to be hard as hell and could potentially make the chapter 3 egg look like a walk in the park. All of the hints from Man Country have been used up, and it's entirely up to us now. And the game literally says we shouldn't look for the man anymore. But I feel like this is less because he doesn't exist, and more because it's gonna be really annoying to find the sucker. It's impossible to say exactly how the street will be accessed. I will try to enter and re-enter that street like at least a septillion times the moment I get control of my meat suit next chapter, but it probably won't work, and I'll have to look it up. If the next Dark World really is in the holiday house, there's also a good chance something in Des's room could be the trigger. But personally, I'd love if this one was entered from the light world. Once we do, I doubt there'll be much to interact with in there. Maybe one of the houses covered in cobwebs or something, but the primary attraction is the egg abode. I'm not gonna speculate on what exactly will be said there. Enough of this video's fanfiction already. But what I will say is that this is gonna be the first time you, the player, will be able to make Chris realize that you're not actually Ultra Mega Hitler like they think. You want to help. Remember, the egg rooms and the weird route are incompatible. Now, I don't think this is gonna make the two of you besties or anything. It'll probably just change a couple of lines of dialogue here and there, and could perhaps nerf a potential Soul vs Chris boss fight if such a thing would occur. It will. It'll use the Sign Soul mode that'll be based around timed parries. I'm betting your life on it. Nothing too important, nor unimportant. But that's basically it. This is gonna be the final egg room, no more after this. Chapter 5 was the neutral ending. This is the 100% true ending, only attainable by getting all previous eggs. There's 2.5 addendums I wanna make, however. 1. Undyne has a line where she realizes there's no bank in hometown. This could be evidence for a secret evil street, but more likely, it's just a joke. 2. Susie says that the Skelebros house just showed up one day, and she can't remember what was there before. Could be related to this, but I doubt it. A half. All of this could happen in chapter 7 during the roaring instead, but like, it wouldn't really change the content itself. Okay, I know it's been a while since the last video, and I really wanna apologize for that. I've just been in a creative rut and scrapped like 3 videos in that time. One of them you can find on Patreon, patreon.com/kaifik. And this was thrown together in a couple of days when the post-chapter 5 brain warps took over. I streamed my playthrough on Twitch, twitch.tv/kaifik. However, I've got an interesting video in the pipeline that could potentially go up before the summer ends. That's more in line with my usual stuff, so be on the lookout for that. Remember to hashtag like and hashtag subscribe and hashtag hit the bell and hashtag follow me on hashtag Twitter and hashtag